Yep.
All right, I think we are ready to begin. Appreciate everybody joining us this afternoon as we introduce a bunch of new staffers again. And we'll let Coach Beamer make an opening statement, and then we'll open it up for questions. Coach?
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate everybody being back on today with us. Hope everyone had a great holiday weekend. Excited to be back here talking about some new additions to Gamecock football and the Carolina Athletics Department. Before I get started, I just wanted to congratulate Asia Wilson on her statue yesterday. What an amazing accomplishment, an amazing day. Saw some of the videos of her speech yesterday, and wow, some of the things she talked about and was very, very impactful for me to hear. Just wanted to congratulate her and on her statue, the impact that she has made and continues to make on basketball and athletics in general, on and off the court. And I think it's a great example of someone that is from South Carolina, stayed at home here in South Carolina, and was able to accomplish so much here for her home state school. I used to tell guys that we recruited about the impact, and still do, the impact that you can have when you stay at home and play for your home state school compared to leaving the state of South Carolina and going other places to do it. And to me, Asia is a great example of that. You see that with a lot of football players that have come from here or come out of here as well. And what a great illustration with what she has been able to accomplish, that you can accomplish all your goals right here, do it at one of the premier academic institutions in the entire world, play big-time college athletics in the Southeastern Conference, and have statues unveiled of you after your career is over at this place. So congratulations to her. I've been a big fan of Coach Staley's program from afar and all of our athletic teams here at Carolina, and excited to be here in Columbia and right in the middle of it now, and can't wait to get out there and start watching them play. Our off-season program began officially today. Our guys were back last week, was the first week of class. So last week was a discretionary week, so everything was voluntary and on their own. And then we cranked up this morning at 7 a.m. with Coach Day, who you'll visit with here shortly. Great energy in the building, not just today, but all last week as well. And excited about the guys that are back and the start that we had in the weight room this morning. Got them all back last night. We had a team meeting last night just to get everything organized. Had a cookout out there on the practice field afterwards, outside the weight room doors, which was a great fellowship and a chance for our coaches and staff and some of our families that were in town to get around the players before we cranked up tomorrow. So really fun night last night. Great having Alshon Jeffrey here last night. Alshon and Shamir Jeffrey both came by. Alshon had called me last week to see if I was in town, and I'd gone back to Oklahoma over the weekend to see my family and go to some of my kids' basketball games that they had over the weekend. So I told him I wasn't, but was hoping he'd be around this week, and he was. So he came by last night and got there towards the end of the cookout, so he didn't get to see as many of the players as I would have liked, but had a chance to myself and Marcus Satterfield and Coach Stepp spent a lot of time with Alshon and Shamir last night. It was fun. He was taking him around the facility, and he said this was really the first time he'd been in this building and had a chance to see everything since it's been completed. And we were downstairs in the Players Lounge. He saw the Darius Rucker recording studio and everything else in this building, and turned to me about in the middle of the tour and said, "Man, if we had had all this stuff when I was being recruited, it wouldn't have taken me as long to commit to you guys and ultimately sign with you on signing day." So wish I would have known that. That may have saved months and years off my life of trying to recruit him and get him to not be committed to Southern Cal like he was when he was coming out of high school. But another example of a guy that stayed home, and we've been able to see what he's been able to accomplish in his NFL career, and was awesome being able to spend time with him last night, and Shamir as well. And then again, I told the team this last night, and I mean it, so appreciative for the people that are here. You know, a lot gets made of players that have chosen to move on for different reasons, which certainly wish them well and have nothing but positive things to say about those guys that felt like a fresh start was best for them. And same thing with the coaches that for different reasons felt like they needed a fresh start somewhere else. But nothing gets said about the guys that stayed, and not just the players that had opportunities to go to other programs, but coaches that are in this building, support staff people that are in this building. You don't hear about when a school calls trying to hire one of your guys last week and then another one over the weekend that had opportunities to go to other programs but chose to stay. Nothing gets said about that publicly and on Twitter and on the message boards and things like that. And I'm not trying to get into people's business here in this building, but make no mistake, there's a lot of guys in this building that have had opportunities to go other places, players, coaches, and support staff. And I'm certainly appreciative of those guys that stayed, and we're not going to broadcast every single person that gets a job offer from another program. But I'm really, really excited and pleased and proud and thankful for the players that were in that indoor facility last night at the team meeting, the coaches that were in that indoor facility last night at the team meeting, and then the support staff as well. We got a great group of people. And like I said before, I'm not naive. When you hire good coaches and you win football games, other schools are going to want to hire your coaches and your staff. So I understand that I'm not going to that I'll always be dealing with this, but to a certain degree, but I'm very thankful for Coach Tanner and Chance Miller and our board and President Caslin and our administration that have allowed me to do the things to keep the people in this building as well. So just wanted to talk about the coaches that we'll be discussing today, and then I can get into any questions that you guys have. Torrian Gray, I've known Torrian since the early 90s. We were teammates at Virginia Tech. He was on the field and playing a lot more, but we did compete against each other a little bit in practice when he was playing defensive back. But a guy that is from Lakeland, Florida originally, played football at a high level at Virginia Tech, coached or played in the NFL after his playing days were over, has coached in college football, has coached in the NFL with a couple different teams throughout his career. As good a defensive backs coach as there is anywhere in the country. He was with the Washington Redskins in the NFL when he went to the the Washington football team. When he went to the Washington football team, he had opportunities to go to some other NFL teams that same year when he was coaching defensive backs at Florida. So he's got a great resume, has coached and played at the highest level. We tried to hire him at Oklahoma when I was out there with Coach Riley, and for different reasons he ended up going back to Florida at that point, but certainly thankful that we were able to get him here at South Carolina. He's a guy that I know what he's about, and his track record of defensive backs that he's developed is second to none. When you look at the guys that he's coached in the NFL, when you look at the guys that he coached and recruited to Virginia Tech and Florida when he was there on two different occasions, it's really, really impressive. And to me, if you're a college football player, to be coached by a guy that has played and coached at the highest level of football, the NFL, the second highest being the Southeastern Conference, that's pretty impressive and a great recruiting tool for us. He's a phenomenal coach, and he's a great defensive mind. I know during my time at Virginia Tech how much Bud Foster relied on him as the defensive backs coach at Virginia Tech, and had a key role in all the success that we had at Virginia Tech defensively under Coach Foster, and couldn't be more excited that he's here. He had opportunities to go other places as well, but chose to be here at Carolina, and excited to be back reunited with Torrian Gray. Jimmy Lindsey, someone that I've known for a long time, has never coached with. I'd seen him on the road recruiting. A lot of people here on this staff have worked with him at different places. Marcus Satterfield has worked with him. Clayton White has worked with him, has strong recruiting ties, born in South Carolina, grew up in North Carolina, has always recruited this area. Coach White had worked with him at Western Kentucky most recently. So when the defensive line position came open, we discussed Jimmy, and this was the first and only name that Clayton brought up to me. I had some guys that I looked into as well, but it's important for Coach White to be able to put together that defensive staff the best way that he sees fit, and we got a great group in there with Mike Peterson and Torrian and Clayton, and then being able to add Jimmy to that, somebody that Clayton has a lot of familiarity with. Was a big addition for us and was important to Clayton, and then just the fact that Lovie Smith, who I think is a great defensive football coach, a great head coach at Illinois, hired Jimmy as his defensive line coach last year, I think speaks volumes. What he was able to learn from Coach Smith and their time at Illinois has only made him a better coach, and then you just look at who he's coached and the level of success that his players have had, from conference players of the year to at Western Kentucky to guys that had some individual recognition up at Illinois this past season. It's impressive, and a guy that's really excited about being here, has always been in this area, but the opportunity to be a coach in the Southeastern Conference was certainly something that he was really excited about, and have really enjoyed visiting with him and on the phone during the interview process or on Zoom, and then in person yesterday when he got down here. And then Luke Day, our head strength and conditioning coach. I know I alluded to him last week, but beyond fired up about this guy. I spoke to a lot of strength coaches as I was putting this staff together, sitting Power 5 strength coaches in the ACC, in the SEC, in the Big 12, in the Pac-12, in the NFL, and talked to a lot of these guys more than once, and just could never put my finger on it that person was exactly what I was looking for. And I kept looking, and I kid Luke, like, people give me a hard time because I hadn't hired a defensive coordinator yet, or we still haven't hired an offensive line coach. And I kid Luke that part of the problem was I didn't have time to, because he was texting me and calling me so much about this position that I didn't have time to hire anybody else, because I was trying to return his calls and texts. And he was showing me how passionate he was about this position. And I finally said, you know what, I've talked to like 8 or 9 strength coaches. I haven't found quite the guy that we're looking for, that's what we need down there in the weight room right now. So I'm going to call this guy. I spent 90 minutes on the phone with him, and after about 10 minutes, I was absolutely convinced this is the guy that we need to hire. He's really, really impressive. Coming from Marshall, he's been in the NFL with the Cincinnati Bengals. There's two coaches on the staff at Marshall that I coached with or played with when I was at Virginia Tech. They raved about him. Hearing from other people in this profession, sitting strength coaches, current and former head coaches that have been around him, that have reached out to me about him. It was a really impressive group of people that were calling, and then the conversation I had with him was really, really impactful for what he'll bring to our players and his ideas. You know, anybody can teach a guy how to squat and bench press and all that stuff. It's so much more down there in that weight room. You've got to have that guy's, and every head coach has probably stood up here and said it, that guy has as much impact on your team as anyone, because he's around them more year-round. He's awesome, and really excited about him. And somebody that wanted to be here. We offered him the job. I think it was on a Saturday. We offered him the job, and he wanted to get in the car immediately and start driving from West Virginia. And I said, well, we've got to get like a term sheet to you. You've got to sign that. There's some things that take place with human resources and all that stuff. So just hold tight. And then I called him back the next morning, and he's in the car driving from West Virginia to Columbia. And I'm like, Luke, like, we haven't gotten the term sheet to you yet. You haven't signed anything. We've offered you the job, but it's going to take a minute. Just hold tight. And he said, I don't care. He goes, I want to be in Columbia, ready to go to work. So as soon as I get that term sheet and that contract, I can sign it, and I'm already in Columbia. And I think he got the term sheet like on a Saturday night at like 6 p.m. He was already in Columbia. He signed it and had it back to us by probably 6:01 after he got it, and then immediately came to the facility on Saturday night with someone that he's since hired as an assistant coach that I hadn't even offered a job to at that point, that he brought over to the facility because he just wanted to see the facility and immediately get to work on how he was going to set up the weight room. So talking to our players, he's very real, he's very genuine, he's very passionate, he's very energetic. I think he'll be awesome for us, and excited about Luke, Jimmy, and Torrian. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions you guys have.
Please use the raise hand function. I think you all know how to do that. And Phil Kornblut with the first one.
Oh, gee, what an honor. In lieu of what happened at Tennessee yesterday, what do you say to your coaches about recruiting rules, following the rules, just making sure everything is done above board and there's no issues in the background?
Yeah, I think it starts with Commissioner Sankey and the expectations he has for us as a program, and all the programs here in the Southeastern Conference. It is me and our administration. Every staff meeting we have, we try and cover something from a compliance standpoint. Jeff Whitehead, our assistant AD for compliance, was in our staff meeting last week, and he went over everything with us from a rule standpoint, certain aspects, the transfer portal, things like that, what you can and can't do. And I've seen it at a place like Oklahoma where we came from and other schools where you can do things the right way. And we're certainly going to do things the right way here. It's great teaching tools for sure when you're able to pinpoint or spotlight other programs that maybe are dealing with some issues like some schools out there right now as an illustration of mistakes they made and not assuming anything. But one thing we talked about in that staff meeting last week was if you ever have a question about something, call Jeff, call Chance, whoever. This is my 22nd year in coaching, and I've called Jeff Whitehead, I think, twice this morning already about rules questions that I had in regards to stuff now that I'm in that head coaching chair, just to make sure that we're doing everything the right way. But I've got a wife and 3 children at home, and when I go home and see them at night and when I look myself in the mirror and lay down, I'm going to feel good about the way that we did things and the way that my staff does things. And it starts with me promoting an atmosphere of compliance, and that's certainly something that we try and do each and every day and each and every week that we're here at Carolina.
Go to David Cloninger.
Hey, Shane, thanks for doing this. Once it's all said and done between your on-field coaches and your analysts, every other you have, do you have a round number of how big you want your staff to be?
Good question. Yeah, and I think that's potentially evolving some as we go. And we talked about it in the interview. I've been at Oklahoma the last few years where it was a little bit probably similar to what South Carolina was last year in this building, in this organization. I've been at the University of Georgia where it was a lot more than that. And I'm more of a less is more kind of guy, define roles. Each person in this building knows what every single person is doing, and there's not a lot of, well, I thought he was doing this, but I thought she was doing that, and vice versa. So the university's been very good to me in allowing me to increase the number of roles in this building, the number of positions in this building. But having said that, it's not something that we're going to explode in regards to the number of positions on the staff. So yes, but I think that, to answer your initial question, I think it's evolving a little bit day to day. We certainly want to do everything. Every hire that we make, I want it to be for our players. And whether that's an extra support staff role to help a Connor Shaw in his role, or whether it's maybe another analyst to help from an offensive and defensive standpoint. There's some competitors of ours that certainly have very giant organizations, and I don't necessarily, that's right for them. It's not necessarily what we need right now, but we also need to make sure that we're on a level playing field and able to compete with those guys on and off the field with their staff sizes as well.
Pete Ackerbelly.
Hey, Shane, I'm going to pull a Phil Cornboot and ask 2 questions. One, you talk about the offseason program starting. Do we know much about spring football dates? Do we even know if we're going to have one yet? And 2, regarding a vaccine, do you have any information about when you, your staff, or your team might be vaccinated?
I do not. I do not. I met with Dr. Guy, our orthopedic surgeon, this morning. I've talked to Clint all the time, but I do not. And obviously, there's a lot of people out there that are not dire, but need that vaccine very quickly, I'm sure, and certainly want to be respectful of that. But no, haven't had any conversations about that. I don't mean to make light of it, but I'm hunkered down in my office trying to finalize a staff and things like that as well. So haven't had those conversations, but we'll do whatever the medical professionals in our university thinks best for our program and staff. And then spring practice, I'm planning to proceed in full speed ahead with spring practice like normal until somebody tells me otherwise. And all my conversations have been that we're full speed ahead. Right now, we're tentatively scheduled to start spring practice on March 20th. Is our tentative start date. If I'm hopeful that we'll be able to have a spring game and get everybody over in Williams-Brice for that. If so, that would be scheduled for April 24th, tentatively right now. But right now, I do know that we're planning on March 20th. It's that typical starting time. I thought it was important for us to maximize the time in the weight room with Coach Day before spring practice. The time that offensive, defensive, and special team staffs have to implement their systems and figure out what our plan of attack is going forward, OD and special teams. So that gives us roughly 9 weeks starting this week to get stuff done in the weight room and get organized from that standpoint before we hit the practice field in March.
Greg Hadley.
Hey, Shane, you kind of mentioned it when talking about Jimmy Lindsey and consulting with Clayton. Just how important is that when you have the coordinator in place to kind of, how important are his preferences of who he wants versus what you need on your staff?
Important, for sure. I mean, it's no different than right now with us trying to hire an offensive line coach, and the offensive coordinator has to have a great relationship with that offensive line coach. They got to be able to work together. Same thing on the defensive staff, and credit to Clayton as well. He took this job. Mike Peterson was here. Tracy Rocker was here at the time. I'd already had some conversations with Torrian Gray, and I wasn't going to force Torrian on Clayton. They talked, and Clayton came back to me and said, he's great, we need to hire him. And Clayton and I talked that the next time we had an opportunity or next time we had an opening on defense that I'd want to work with him to allow him to get, somebody that he wanted to get in here as long as it fit with my values and what we needed as a program. I didn't think it was going to be 4 days later, but it happened. And then immediately he said, Jimmy's the guy that I would like to call, and that's what we did. And I had a good conversation with him. But it's important, but it's also got to fit in the program as well. I mean, I did my research on Jimmy with other people, places that he'd been and coaches that he'd worked with, and everything came back positive. Enjoyed visiting with him, and fortunate that he's in Columbia with us now.
Mike Yuba.
Hey, Shane. I think some people that aren't familiar in terms of college football don't realize how important strength and conditioning coach is and just how much they are around the players, probably more than any other coach on staff. With your previous stops, especially the places where you have had success, how important has that strength and conditioning coach been, number one? And number two, what are some of the characteristics you think that make a great strength and conditioning coach and can lead Luke to being able to be that here at South Carolina?
Huge. You're exactly right, Mike. I mean, I saw it firsthand with my dad at Virginia Tech. He had a strength coach by the name of Mike Gentry for all 29 years that he was the head coach at Virginia Tech, and no other guy. And I saw the impact that Coach Gentry had on the Virginia Tech program for decade after decade that he was there. And then I've been around some good ones as well at the places that I've been. As a graduate assistant at Georgia Tech, one of our assistant strength coaches that year was Scott Sinclair, who's the head strength and conditioning coach now at Georgia, who Luke Day replaced at Marshall. So seeing Scott in two different roles and what a impact that was for Kirby and us our first year over in Athens, and then being back at Virginia Tech as an assistant coach with Coach Gentry in that role, being here at South Carolina and seeing the impact that Craig Fitzgerald had on our program when Fitz came in as a strength coach in a short time, and the impact he made on our players and what he did out at Oklahoma with Benny Wiley, who's one of the more respected strength coaches in the country in the last couple of years. So it's huge. I mean, it's not just I can hire anybody and go down there and get the guy stronger. It's motivation, it's spiritual, it's social, it's nutrition, it's working well with Clint Haggard in the training room and Kristen in nutrition. It's being on the same team and we all work together. It's so many things, but you're right. I mean, that guy's with the players in the summer, in the spring, right now down in the weight room. And I think the qualities, obviously you've got to be knowledgeable about the profession. You got to be knowledgeable about how to get guys stronger, but it's so much sports science related now. It's total body. It's being able to, like I said, get in there and motivate guys. And I think you've got to just be real and consistent and genuine. And I think that's the one thing with Luke that our players appreciate, just being around him in a couple team meetings, is he's going to tell it like it is. And I think his passion just oozes out of him about being here and his excitement about being here and how much he wants to work and make this thing right. I was talking to Clint, our trainer this morning, Clint Haggard, and he said he and Luke talked multiple times this weekend just about strength and conditioning, training room, but then things outside that as well. And that relationship's got to be critical because at the end of the day, you've got to your players got to be available. They've got to be able to play on Saturdays and be healthy, and everything going on in the weight room. It all starts there, but it ties in with everybody else in this building as well. And all these roles work together.
Josh Kendall.
Hey, Shane. Can you identify that quality that you were looking for but not finding in your previous strength coach conversations and the moment that you heard it from Luke in y'all's conversation?
I don't know if there's anything. It just, you know how it is. You just sometimes you get a feeling that this is what we need. And there were some really, really, really qualified and great strength coaches that I talked to. Like I said, you don't have success like these guys. Some of these guys that I talked to that wanted to be at Carolina without being successful and very impactful in the roles that they're in. So I don't know if it was anything that those guys didn't have. I think it was just the energy that Luke brought, the ideas that he had, not just about the weight room, but mental toughness and grit and all those things that you got to have as a football team to get from where we are right now to where we want to be. And I just really loved his ideas about that. And we talked about the potential staff that he had in mind of guys. I mean, he was just very organized. He sent me a 44-page packet, I think, just about South Carolina and our program and his ideas for strength and conditioning. That I was on a couple plane trips going to interview a couple coaches over the last couple weeks, and I would just flip through it on the plane ride and look through it, and it was just really, really good. And he and I have a lot of the same ideas about things. We've read a lot of the same books. We think a lot of the same ways about stuff, and it was just kind of a connection talking to him early on the phone. And I don't know if there was an exact moment. I felt pretty good about this guy before we talked on the phone, but then once we started talking, it really just solidified everything that I felt about him. And then, like I said, the staff he was able to put together, he talked about that in his packet, and that was really impressive too. It was kind of like he told the team last night, when you come coach, when you take a job in the SEC, you're able to put together like the A team of assistant coaches, and feel confident that he has and will continue to be able to do that as some of these other hires are finalized and announced.
Colin Taylor.
Packet unsolicited?
Say it again.
Did he send you that packet unsolicited?
He did. He mailed it to me. It was part of like the 50 text messages, voicemails, missed calls, and everything else I had from him about it. So he was persistent and passionate. But yeah, he sent that to me and just said, look through it, and it was great. He put it together. I mean, it was the background. It's like a PowerPoint thing that he printed out on paper, or that he emailed me that I had print out. It was a garnet background, had the Block C logo all over it, and was very specific to the program. And anybody can do that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he got the job because he put together a nice 45-page packet with the Carolina logo on it. You got to be credible and be able to do the job. But that certainly helped him and piqued my interest, and had a great visit, great conversation with him that day on the phone as well.
Colin Taylor.
I guess you've mentioned now the offensive line position. Just where are you in that process, finding a guy, and what are some of the qualities you and Marcus are really looking for when you sit down to interview candidates?
Yeah, obviously X's and O's knowledge and being able to fit in with not just Marcus, but that entire offensive staff room. I mean, every time I go back in that staff room, the vibe, the connection in there, it's really, really good. They're getting a lot of work done, but it's a great group of guys in there, and they certainly have a lot of fun in there as they've been plowing through recruiting video and talking scheme and things like that. So you got to get a guy that is going to fit in with that room. But then more importantly, it's that person has to connect with the offensive coordinator. I mean, it's a critical hire, whether I was at Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley and Bill Beatenbow, or when I was at Georgia with Jim Chaney and Sam Pittman, who had worked together at Tennessee and Arkansas before. I mean, those guys got to be able to speak the same language, be on the same page, connect. So that's one thing that obviously is first and foremost important. And then you got to be, like all the other positions, a great person and fit in with the players in this building and the staff in this building and the group that we're putting together. It's a really good group of offensive linemen that certainly need somebody to come in here and continue to elevate them and lift them up on and off the field. So looking for a guy like that can make these guys better players on the field, and then certainly help create the bond that those guys need on and off the field as well. And we're working through it. There's certainly some guys that Marcus has been around during his career that we've talked about. There's people that I've been around in my career that we've talked about, and we've had some really good conversations, and I think we're close on that. Again, like every other position, there's no lack of interest in the position as well. They see that we've got the majority of the offensive line coming back. They see a 1,000-yard rusher with Marshawn Lloyd sitting out last season. There's a lot to like about our offense if you're an offensive line coach out there across the country, not to mention coaching at a great place like South Carolina. So a lot of interest. It's just trying to find the right fit for what we're looking for on and off the field.
John Del Bianco.
Hey, Shane, can you speak to some of the guys you guys have brought in from the transfer portal that are enrolled?
Yeah, I don't want to start naming names because I'll forget somebody. If you want to ask, we can talk about them or however you want to do it, because if I start naming them, I'll probably forget somebody, and I don't want to leave anybody out.
Yeah, well, Amari Brown for starts.
All right, good there. Yep, really excited. Obviously transferred from Georgia Tech. You look at what he did at Georgia Tech, broke a lot of Calvin Johnson's freshman receiving records, and he was a position when I got here. I sat down and we talked about what are some immediate positions of need, and that receiver was one of them. And he's a guy that's played some, had some really great conversations with he and his family over Zoom over the holidays that will help us here immediately at that receiver position, bring some speed and big play ability, which we definitely need out there on the perimeter.
And Darrell Williams, I think he's there too.
Yep, so Darrell, or Debo as we call him around here, that was somebody that Marshawn brought to us. So we've told him he's 1 for 1 as a recruiter. Marshawn came to myself and I guess Coach Kitchings and said, look, I know this guy from back home in the Maryland, Delaware area. Just take a look at his video and watch his video, and you're sitting there, you turn it on, you're like, oh my gosh, how is that guy how did he not get recruited from ACC, SEC, Big Ten, you name it, schools? I mean, really impressive video, really productive high school career, and he's a guy that is all business. When I told you guys, I think I told you last week that I walked in the weight room last week at like 5:45 a.m. and there were 2 guys in there already lifting weights. It was Debo and Marshawn. We were in there together. So he's a guy that's certainly thankful for the opportunity to be here, and really excited that he's a part of the program. He's one of those guys. He may be 18 years old or whatever he is, but he's like 18 going on 22. The way that he carries himself, he's all business and will help us at that linebacker position.
And then I think you guys got 3 more in Jakeem Green, Jordan Strawn, and David Spalding.
There you go. So David gives us some length at the defensive back position. Really impressive measurables when you look at his size, his length. Everybody in America is looking for DBs with some size that can run and have speed, size, speed, and length. And he has all that. He'll help us at another position of need where we're thin on numbers there in the secondary for different reasons. So that's a big get for us. We're continuing to look to add maybe some more guys down the stretch at that defensive back position. Jakeem, local guy from here in Sumter, or from Sumter, that via Nebraska ended up coming back to us, that we looked and we said we felt like we needed to add someone on the defensive line in that interior D-line position. Talked to some coaches at Nebraska where he came from. Really productive player. All those guys spoke nothing but amazing things about him. Had always wanted to be at Carolina. I had to take a little bit of a detour to get back here, but excited about having him. And then Jordan's another one. Just what a story. Was a 185-pound senior in high school that walked on at Georgia State, that a few years later leads the entire nation in sacks. I mean, you talk about a phenomenal story. And great young man. He went in the portal. We jumped on him immediately once we saw that he went in the transfer portal. Awesome conversation with his mom and dad. Great family. Certainly very appreciative of the opportunity here. He and AB have Amari, and they have some familiarity from both being over in Atlanta. different schools, but in Atlanta at the same time. Two great young men that we got to make that are going to help our locker room as well. I mean, you got to be a great player, obviously, but we want to make sure we're bringing the right people into this building as well, and really excited about the kind of players we brought in, but the kind of people that we brought in as well that we feel like will be able to help us immediately, all those guys.
Thanks. I hope that doesn't qualify as a Phil question.
No, I allowed that one. I put you on the spot and made it, so you're good.
Hill McGranahan.
Sort of on the topic of personnel, are there any other players who have, I guess, defected from the roster since our last time with you? I know you were kind of waiting to see maybe how things have played out there. Can you address any of that stuff at this point? Or?
No, I mean, not that I'm aware of. Like every school in America, the transfer portal is popping for sure, but I haven't been given any indication, and I finished up all my individual meetings with all of our players. Last Wednesday was my last one, so I had 90 plus players. Anybody that's on our team has been through my office. Some of them with their parents, and some of them with not, but had great meetings and answered questions, and certainly every day is its own day, but everybody attendance was 100% last night at the team meeting of everyone that we expected to be there, and don't anticipate anything else happening. But again, we just continue to move right along and coach the guys that are in the building, but really fired up about the group that is here for sure.
As sort of a follow-up to what you said about possibly looking for more help at DB, are there some other positions on the team that you guys feel like you definitely need to continue to address moving forward?
There is, but a lot of that, Hale, is just trying to evaluate the guys that we have in this building as well, and as the coaches get in here, really figure out exactly what we have. Because you look at it right now, as far as the 10 on the field coaches, Mike and Dez were the only two guys that are still here that were here last year. So it's really about Coach White, Coach Satterfield, Coach Limbo, and all of our coaches getting a feel for what we have in the program, how they fit into the systems and schemes that we're running, and then what positions, do we need more bodies at. For example, Coach White's defensive system is going to be built a little bit differently than Coach Muschamp's, defensive system in a lot of ways. So whereas you had X number of scholarships that you wanted at each position for the defense last year, that might be a little bit different this year, and then so on and so forth with the offense as well. So we still have scholarships available. We are going to continue to add depth to this roster. There's no doubt about it, but a lot of it is, you hear NFL teams talk about it, about positions of need or best available player, and we're certainly in that boat right now with all that. Positions that we'd like to increase a little bit depending on how things go going forward with the guys that we have here, but then also trying to find the very best players that can help us immediately as well.
Matt Connolly.
Shane, kind of sticking with the transfer portal, how have you seen the popularity and use of that change over the years, and then what are some of the positives and negatives that you see with the portal?
Ooh, that could be its own press conference, Matt. It's just so new for everybody. I mean, it went from what the situation was last year to now it's constant. It's South Carolina, it's Oklahoma, I'm constantly on the phone. I mean, you want guys to be able to have the opportunity to go places that give them the best opportunity for success on and off the field. And, we always want to help young men do that, but it's just a lot of moving parts that all schools are dealing with. Like I said, I went back to Norman last weekend on Saturday or Friday night and Saturday. My 12-year-old daughter had a basketball game on Friday night. My 7-year-old son had a basketball game on Saturday afternoon, and my kids play in the same youth basketball league that Lincoln Riley's kids play in. The Oklahoma Director of Player Personnel's kids, the Oklahoma Receivers Coach's kids, pretty much anybody at Oklahoma, their kids play in this league. And I'm at the basketball game on Friday night, and staff members at Oklahoma, they're on the phone texting just like I am, dealing with the portal. Somebody on their own team, they're trying to talk about not going in the portal and why they needed to stay at Oklahoma. They're getting phone calls from people that are interested in transferring to Oklahoma. So it's just a constant thing that not only South Carolina's dealing with, but the whole country's dealing with for sure. And there's certainly some negatives to it. There's definitely some positives. I mean, we've we've benefited from it. Let's be real, but we've also been affected by it on the other end of the spectrum when guys are leaving as well. But you always want to just be involved in your players and their lives and know what's going on. And you can't just assume that, and that's always been the case, but probably more so than ever, you've just got to really be even more in tune with what's going on in your players' lives, because there's a lot out there right now affecting them.
Mitch Brown.
Coach, obviously you watched the tape on Darrell Williams, but how much of a no-brainer was it when you saw he went by Debo and you said you got to have another Debo in the program? And then secondly, you talked about the recruiting tools that the recording studio is, just having an extra amenity. I'm not sure if he's been back, but when do you expect Melvin Ingram to get back to lay down a track in there?
I hope soon. I mean, who better than Melvin to come in there and do that with his with what he's been able to do out in California as well. So I texted Melvin over the weekend about something, and he assured me that he would be back here often. So hopefully with their season wrapping up, we'll be able to get him back out here soon. Again, I texted him over the weekend, but you're right. I mean, the facility here, it's so many opportunities and resources here in this building. It's as good as anywhere in the country for a high school prospect to be a part of each and every day, for sure. And yeah, to get another Debo in the building is a no-brainer, especially a Debo that plays linebacker. I mean, you almost have to take that guy, an inside linebacker named Debo. So he has lived up to the name Debo in the 2 weeks that I've been around him, and he's pumped to be here, and really I know he's very motivated about the opportunity and motivated to get to work.
Dennis Brunson.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm from over in Sumter, so I wanted you to expand a little bit upon Jakeem Green. What do you like about him, and besides his girth, obviously, and what made you decide he would be a good fit for your team?
Just talking to him and hearing his story, and reaching out to some coaches at Nebraska that I know and hearing them talk about him as well. I mean, for a guy that's leaving another school to go to another school, I mean, they had plenty of reason if they didn't want to have anything positive to say, but they were over the top positive about him and the kind of young man he is. Obviously, his size and his athleticism and his ability inside, I mean, he's a disruptor, and will certainly help us from that standpoint. Everybody's looking for defensive linemen across the country, and to have a guy that has that size, has that athleticism, can be disruptive in the interior, is an older guy. He's not a freshman coming out of high school. He's got experience. He's got a story that has kind of hardened him along the way, the different stops that he's had to end up back here at South Carolina. Hearing him tell me that was pretty cool, hearing his story and the lessons he's learned and how appreciative he is. And then just to have an in-state guy, we know what this place means to people from the state of South Carolina, and I have a guy that's always wanted to be at Carolina that had to take a little bit of a different avenue to get here is impressive, and somebody that I know is going to do great things for us.
We'll take two more. Dick Cox.
Hey, Shane, I know it might be a little bit early to tell, but do you feel like you're going to be able to get spring practice in this year? And what are you hoping to be able to accomplish during what could be kind of a crazy off season?
Yeah, I mean, we just take it each and every day, one day at a time. But we're full speed ahead on spring practice and anticipate being able to get it in. Obviously, I was at Oklahoma last year, and we got one practice in before everything was shut down. And obviously we're following the proper protocols and trying to do the right thing here in the building and then outside the building as well. So we're able to do that. And then until the people above me tell me that we're not having spring practice, we're full speed ahead on spring practice and excited to get out there. And man, there's so much that has to get done. You've got 15 practices with a new staff and a lot of new players and new faces out there. So 15 practices really isn't enough. But, obviously the base stuff, being able to get in there and establish the foundation of your schemes, offense, defense, and special teams, players learning how we coach, us learning our players, developing mental and physical toughness, getting better as a football team. I mean, all the things that all the things every team across the country is trying to do in spring practice, especially more so for us this year with the fact that we didn't get spring practice last year, new coaching staff, new faces. It'll be extra important for us to be able to get that in.
Last question, go back to where we started. Phil Kornblut.
Oh boy, okay. Got two for you, Shane, here to wrap it up.
I knew you couldn't go one day without, or a press conference without one, Phil. I knew you'd circle back at the end.
I have to squeeze these in. Replacing Drew Hughes, what's going to be your process there, and how important a hire is that for you? And follow up on what we asked you last time we met, any further conversations with Ryan Helinski about his future potentially coming back?
Yeah, for the director of player personnel position, certainly want to get a guy. I mean, that's an important hire, and that runs the recruiting department. Drew did a great job when he was here, and I met with all of our student assistants that have assisted Drew over the last couple of years yesterday, and those guys are studs. And I told them that they've done a great job helping me and the assistant coaches during this transition. As I came on board, I'm trying to learn about recruits, learn about our current team, and then the new assistant coaches as well. So those guys, they know what the heck they're doing, and they've done a great job, and will continue to as we go forward. Obviously, we know where we are from a recruiting standpoint and what needs to be done. So it's not like we have to get a guy in here tomorrow or the recruiting is going to fall apart. We'll be okay. And then just looking for a guy that is knowledgeable, has experience. You got to be able to, manage and organize a recruiting department and know what the heck you're talking about. So taking our time on that one. And then on the second question, no.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time. Everybody have a great week, and talk to you soon.
All right, next up is our defensive back coach, Torrian Gray. And he is going to make a short opening statement, and we'll open up for questions.
Hey, guys. I'm excited to be here at the University of South Carolina. Excited to be able to come to a great institution. It's in a big-time conference, and look forward to helping contribute to get us back to our winning ways. It's exciting and ready to go.
First question goes to David Cloninger.
Hey, Torrian, David Cloninger with the Charleston Post and Courier here. Hope you're doing well and settling in. Just looking at your position group, they seem to be hit the hardest since the end of last season. 5 guys went ahead and moved on. So have you looked at your room and who you're starting to kind of pencil in where at those kind of spots?
Yes, I have. Tried to familiarize myself with the guys, kind of looked at who's coming back and what plays that they have last year and try to get an idea of where we're at from a talent assessment standpoint so we can move on.
Mike Yuba.
Torrian, I mean, this is something that we've kind of talked about with some of these other coaches these last couple of weeks. What was the first impression when you walked up into this ops building? And just from, a coaching standpoint, what do you think a building like that can do from a recruiting standpoint and just being able to get this program turned around in the way that Coach Beamer and I'm sure yourself and the rest of the coaches envision this program being able to do?
Well, I was thoroughly impressed with the facilities. When I walked in the building, I was in awe. And, when you're in the arms race against the people we're going against in this conference and in the country from a recruiting standpoint, the players, it's awesome that we have a facility that the players can walk in and be like, wow, this is awesome. So, you need that as an aspect of the recruiting to help.
Josh Kendall.
Hi, Torrian. Josh Kendall with The Athletic. You've been various places and come into contact with various strength coaches who in general are a unique breed of guy, odd group of guys. So you've met Luke Day now for a day or two. Where does he rank so far on the sort of strength coach oddness? We'll call it oddness scale right now.
I guess in their business, in the strength industry, oddness is a good thing. The odder the guys, it seems like the better those guys are. That guy is if not the most important guy in the building, one of the most important guys in the building because he's around our players all the time. And Luke has a great presence about himself, a great oddness about himself that I'm excited about because I've been around some good ones and know what they look like, what they sound like, and know how they can grab players' attentions and get the maximum out of players. And he seems like he's of that ilk.
What's the most important thing you think they can convey to players? If there's one thing that's at the top of that list.
You got to strain. It's, college football isn't easy. Anything that these student athletes do, nothing's easy. And you just got to be able to strain and you got to be able to understand how to push through stuff. And if those guys can convey that, it'll make our job easier going forward as coaches.
Thank you, Tori.
Mm-hmm.
Colin Taylor.
Colin Taylor from the rival site here in Columbia. I'm just curious, how has recruiting gone now that you've been here? What's been the reception from some of the guys that you've been recruiting? And when you are out there recruiting, I guess, defensive backs, what are some traits that you're specifically looking for in that group?
We're just trying to hit the ground running here recruiting. You come in and, kind of got to recruit corners. You got to recruit safeties. You're trying to fill in for the spots that have been voided, and you're just trying to reach out, evaluate as much film as we can, get guys that have already been offered, and you're just trying to hit that thing running and connect with as many guys as possible, see what responses we're getting back, and go from there. I'm sorry, the last part of your question on that was?
Just what are some things that you're looking for, some traits or skills you're looking for in the defense?
All of us, I assume defensive back coaches are the same. We want long, fast guys, long, tall, fast guys that can play the ball. And, everybody's kind of going after those guys with intangibles, guys that love football, some other things that you look for. But you're kind of looking for certain traits, certain variables and measurements to start off with.
Mitch Brown.
Coach, obviously, you've had ties with Coach Beamer, but also when you think about your time and your last stop in Washington, covered you there, and obviously you had DJ Swearinger leading the league in interceptions at one point, but there was a togetherness in that secondary room. Obviously, there's been a lot of attrition here at Columbia, but what do you plan to do to make sure that there's this togetherness there as a unit so it shows on the field?
Well, the biggest thing you have to do, Mitch, is we have to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we're all working towards the same goal, and that's to be the best secondary in the country, be the best secondary in the SEC, set our goals high, but we need each other all on one accord. And that's the first line of business. You want to be that group back there, because you can win and lose games by the plays you make or you don't make on that back end. Got to be on the same page. You got to believe with what you're doing. You got to believe in each other. We got to be coached. Got to be coached well, and all those things. It's just so much that encompasses with that group, and that's what we're going to start doing here, or what we've started to do here.
Dick Cox.
Coach, I'm Dick Cox with Lindsey Sports and Cox Sports Broadcasting. Kind of following up on that last question, you've inherited a position that there's no starters at this point really coming back. How do you go? What's the first thing you've got to do to go about rebuilding that position?
First thing we're going to go about doing is, with the guys that we got, it's all you can work with. And with the guys that we got, we're going to build confidence in those guys. That's why I put on my Twitter handle the new DBU. You got to come in, you got to give those who we got and what we're working with a certain mindset that, we're going to be as good as anybody in the country. We just got to prepare and start with what we got. We got to work our tails off in the weight room. Once we start meeting, we got to meet with a purpose. And everything we do has got to be with a purpose. And it's just, kind of be tunnel vision on what we got to do and the work we got ahead of us, because we're kind of coming from the bottom of the hole with the departures and those things like that, and a lack of experience. But I think that's going to be an exciting challenge for us.
Matt Connolly.
Torrian, you mentioned trying to be the new DBU. Just how much do you sell the success that South Carolina has had with DBs and you've had with DBs on recruiting, and how do you kind of use that moving forward?
I think all the above is going to help us. I seen, as I was looking to get the job here, someone put out something on Twitter, and it had the tradition talking about South Carolina defensive backs. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. And we have a great tradition here with defensive backs, and there's no reason why we shouldn't be proud of that. So that's why I put up the new DBU, and the guys have got to, believe, and the guys we're recruiting, the guys that are already here, we got to believe that, hey, we're of that ilk and we can beat those guys. And, so that's kind of the mindsets that we got to approach. We're going to approach it with.
And along those same lines, Coach Beamer was talking about you had other opportunities that you could have considered, but wanted to come to South Carolina. Can you kind of share what that process was like and ended up at South Carolina?
Well, obviously you got to weigh your options when you're in the position I was in. And I knew Shane had just gotten a job here. And obviously I know Shane. We played together back at Virginia Tech. We've coached together with his dad. And I know Shane knows me. I know what kind of person Shane is. And it's important to me to be able to, work with someone and like I told Shane, man, I know this is your first head coaching job, man, and I want to come help you hit this thing running. And like I said, it was fortunate that it just worked out.
John Del Bianco.
Hey, Torrian, I'm John with the Big Spur and the 24/7 sports site. We had already talked a little bit about you coaching DJ Swearinger there in Washington. I'm just curious, what was it like coaching him up there, and how often did he talk about his upbringing in South Carolina and kind of the culture and his era of football here in Columbia?
DJ was, honestly, and I've told DJ this, the smartest guy that I've coached. Just a very high football IQ, and that's what's allowed DJ to still be in the league after the amount of years he's been doing this. The things I learned about South Carolina, well, him and Josh Norman were both South Carolina guys that were in that secondary, so I got a lot of South Carolina talk. Now, it's not we necessarily talked about the tradition of the DBUs there, but I got to hear a lot about South Carolina football from those respects, because DJ definitely can talk and carry on his conversations. But like I said, it was great, and I actually learned some things as a player, to learn something from a player, just from how professional he was and how he carried himself and how his mental approach to the game helped me become better as a coach.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Phil Kornblut.
Hey, Coach, it's Phil Kornblut, Sports Talk Media Network here in South Carolina. So your days at Virginia Tech facing off against Shane in practice, how did you feel when he lined up across from you? How often did he beat you deep? What were those battles like?
Well, we had certain guys that oh man, that's Coach Beamer's son that wanted to go against Shane, and I'm going to make a point on Coach Beamer's son. I was never that guy. I was like, man, I don't want Coach Beamer to be mad at me or something if I did something wrong to Shane or whatnot. So I honestly never went against Shane, but we had some other guys who wanted, I guess, to go against the coach's son. That was a big deal to them.
And Dennis Brunson.
Hey, Coach, how you doing? Dennis Brunson. I'm with the Sumter Item newspaper. I'm about 40 miles down the road from you. And I know you really haven't had a chance to get to know guys yet and all that. But O'Donnell Fortune, he's from Sumter. What impresses you with what you've seen of him on film and in any kind of meetings you've had with him?
Well, we're not allowed to meet with the guys at this point. And like I said, I tried to get as much research on the players that played some plays. O'Donnell didn't have a lot of plays that I've seen, but I see his length, I see his frame, and he did have a couple plays. He had some plays that stood out. So I'm looking forward to see how he's going to progress this offseason in the weight room and what he's like mentally and those things as we approach spring ball.
Thanks a lot, Coach.
Thank you.
And I don't see any more hands up, so we will let Coach Gray go. We'll get a picture of him quick here, and then we'll get on with Jimmy Lindsey.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Okay.
All right, next up is defensive line coach Jimmy Lindsey, and we're going to go right to questions for Jimmy. And it looks like Dennis Brunson is the first one.
Dennis Brunson. I'm with Sumter Item newspaper over in Sumter, about 40 miles from where you are now. Jakeem Green, he's from our area. Just talk a little what you've been able to see with him. What impresses you with Jakeem?
Well, really, I got here yesterday, so I'm about a day and a half on the job. Don't really know the guys. That's a goal that I got to get to this week as far as getting to know our players. Collected the cell phone numbers last night, so I'll be reaching out to those guys here in the next couple of days to foster those relationships.
Okay, thank you.
Dick Cox.
Hi, Coach. I'm Dick Cox from Lindsey Sports and Cox Sports Broadcasting. I know you've got a background with South Carolina and coaching at Furman, different places, and just talk a little bit about getting back to coach and be back in the state of South Carolina.
It's really cool to be back in the state that you were born in. I was born in Sherrall, South Carolina, moved to a really small town, Morven, North Carolina, which is in Anson County. But to be back in the state and be so close to your family. I was at my mom's house yesterday, and I plugged in the address to the stadium, and it said 95 miles. So that was really, really cool to see.
Mike Yuba.
Hey, Jimmy, Mike Yu from Watch Fox Sports. How much of that relationship with Clayton can help you guys be able to just get things going as quickly as possible? And how exciting is it to be able to work with someone that you have worked with in the past?
I think anytime that you can have continuity and have a familiar background with a person, it makes the transition a lot easier. Coach White does a phenomenal job of nurturing and developing a defensive staff. I'm excited to be back with him. We were apart for a year, but I look forward to being with him and helping this defense get back on the right track.
And Jimmy, just a quick follow-up, being able to work for a guy like Lovie Smith, obviously one of the best defensive mind coaches in the game. What were you able to learn from him during your time with him over in Illinois?
Coach Smith was the same every day. I think one of the biggest things I took from him was being able to keep your composure when things are good and when things are bad. He's a strong man of faith. I actually talked to him Friday when I got offered the job. That was one of the first people that I called. I think the world of Coach Lovie Smith. He gave me a chance, at the Power 5 level. So I'm forever grateful to him for that.
Hale McGranahan.
Hey, Coach, I'm Hale McGranahan with the South Carolina 24/7 site, thebigspur.com. I was just curious if you could share some insight on Coach White for those of us who are still learning about him. What's sort of your quick scouting report or rundown of his defense and kind of overall philosophy for what y'all do on that side of the ball?
Well, Coach bases out of a 4-2-5. Very aggressive, very detailed, organized coach. Does a great job with the staff and the players. The cool thing that our players are about to be in store for is they'll enjoy playing for Coach. And he'll do a great job of being demanding of them, but also giving them that confidence and that coaching up to play this game at a high level.
Colin Taylor.
Just Colin Taylor from the rival site here at South Carolina. Just following up on that, with the 4-2-5, just what do you ask your defensive linemen to do in that kind of system? What kind of onus do you have to put on them in terms of affecting the pocket and getting to the quarterback?
Well, the first thing we got to do is stop the run. If we don't stop the run, we don't get a chance to rush the passer. So first and foremost, we got to understand the job of playing one gap defense in our system, and then when we earn the right to get to third down and third and long, we can rush the passer and have some success. There's a lot of great quarterbacks in this league, so we got our work cut out for us.
Michael Lanana.
Hey, Jimmy. This is Michael Lanana with the State newspaper. I was checking out your Twitter, and I saw you had the progression and creatures. I saw those hashtags, and I was just curious just a little bit about those and just in general, just kind of your philosophy as far as just your relationships with players and player development and things like that.
Well, the progression is just the thing that sort of came up with my players at Western Kentucky. It's just our steps that we take in the run game and in the pass rush game. So we like to joke. They always joke with me, Coach, I'm in the progression. So it's been successful and look forward to implementing it with our guys here. And then the creatures came about. You play up front, you got to be a creature. Those guys up front changed the game. So just a couple of hashtags to make it fun for the guys and get them believing in what we're doing.
Dick Cox.
Coach Beamer has put together a staff of men of high character and men that are very strong in their beliefs. Talk about the importance of that.
I think it's huge because we have a chance to impact young men and not only develop them as football players, but developing them for life after football. Football's obviously been great to me, and I wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for coaches that impacted my life as a high school player and a college player.
Hale McGranahan.
Just curious, as you're evaluating potential defensive linemen to come play for you, what are some of the, I guess, primary things you want to look for when you're looking at a guy on tape, in addition to, I guess, maybe some of the off the field type of stuff that you try to get to know?
Well, obviously, our great recruiting staff here has a size-speed ratio for every position. So obviously, you want guys that meet the size-speed ratio for your position. And then you want guys that love football. Right before this, I had the opportunity to chat with three 2022 recruits, and that's one of the questions that I asked them. You know, do you love football? So guys that love the game, that want to be developed, that play hard, that are in it for the right reasons, that are good teammates.
Colin Taylor.
Just kind of following up on that, just how would you describe yourself as a recruiter, and what's been the response from some of the guys that you have been able to talk to now that you're taking the job about South Carolina and the impression you've gotten from them?
The three that I have talked to, it's been a great response. Obviously, just hit the ground running today, got in yesterday. So looking forward to fostering and developing those relationships with potential recruits. And just this is a great institution, university to sell, world-class facilities, great fan base. So I think we got a lot to offer here at South Carolina.
Mitch Brown.
Coach, I'm curious, obviously you've been talking about recruiting, how much pride you take in having the opportunity to be able to recruit guys not only from the state that you grew up in, but also to come to this university that has, been on your mind to be a coach here and now have the opportunity to actually do it instead of think about it?
It's a great sale for us. Obviously, though, let me correct you, Mitch. I grew up in North Carolina, born in South Carolina. So, obviously, great. It's a great sale for us. Just seeing the parts of the campus and driving in and seeing the stadium, all of that's impressive. I think when we have the opportunity to get kids to our institution and on our campus and they see what we have to offer, I think it's a no-brainer.
Go back to Dick Cox.
Coach, what's the most important thing that you want Gamecock fans to know about you?
Great teacher. Pride myself in trying to be the best possible teacher on the football field I can possibly be.
And Hale McGranahan.
Coach, sort of what I asked you about Coach White, what's your recollection of Coach Satterfield, being on the staff with him previously? What's he like as an offensive mind and play caller and all that?
Me and Coach Satterfield started out as graduate assistants at University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. And I've been able to watch him evolve since 2000. He's intense, great play caller, great with the players, really good football coach. So excited to be back united with him.
Colin Taylor.
I guess I talked to Coach White about this when he got introduced, but as a defense, when you sit back and after a game, what are some stats that you look at from a defensive side of things to show you if you guys are being effective? Is it yards per, I assume yards per rush since you want to stop the run, but what are some things that help you measure success outside of wins and losses?
I think red zone defense, third down, and points. A team can drive up and down the field on you and have 450 yards, but if they kick field goals and we don't give up touchdowns, it gives us a chance to win. Obviously, being great on third down is a huge impact upon any game.
Anything else for Coach Lindsey? Seeing more hands? All good? All right. Appreciate it, Coach. We're going to get a photo of you here.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Coach.
You want to make an opening statement or go right question? Luke Day, our new strength and conditioning coach. First time I've met him as well, so I look forward to hearing him. He's going to make an opening statement, then we'll open up for questions. Go ahead, Coach.
First off, I just want to express how thankful I am for this opportunity to be here and to be the strength coach at the University of South Carolina. I told the team the first time I ever got to address them about a week ago, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me aside from marrying my wife and the birth of my kids, but it's close. It's real close. It's that special, and been working my whole life, my whole adult life, for an opportunity like this. And I'm gonna squeeze every inch of opportunity I can out of it. So, what you guys got?
All right, Chandler Mack's up first. Go ahead, Chandler.
All right, Coach, thanks for doing this today. Coach Beamer was kind of talking about your passion for this position started early. You were blowing up his phone and all that. Just talk to us about why were you so passionate about coming to USC and being the strength coach here?
This is one of those places that you think about that if it ever came, you had the inkling of an opportunity to be considered for. There was nothing I wasn't going to do to give myself a chance. And I know Coach I sincerely bothered him, and I would not stop. And I didn't stop until he's going to have to call me. He's going to have to tell me no. But one thing he's going to know for sure is nobody wants this job more than me. And it was yes, I sent him lots and lots of text messages. Basically, every couple hours, just nobody's going to fight for this team more than you, more than me for you. Nobody's going to train these people from the inside out and go after the heart of these young men. And yeah, it's kind of absurd the way I did it and the way I wanted to go after it, and I'm just thankful to him that he gave me the time. And when we finally did connect and get a chance to speak with each other, there was a lot of like-minded thinking. And the way we kind of perceive this profession and what it is we're actually here to do, those things lined up quite a bit. And I'm, like I said, just so thankful that it worked out like it had.
Mike Yuba.
Hey, Coach, Mike Yu from Watch Fox Sports. We were talking with Coach Beamer a little while ago, just the importance of a strength and conditioning coach. And I think some people that have not been, through a program or covered football, they don't understand the importance of how much you guys are around the players. When you look at your role, number one, what's the most important aspect of it? And then number two, what makes a great strength and conditioning coach in your eyes?
Well, the number one role, and we have to wear a lot of hats in this job, in this role, but the number one is I'm the executive branch of the vision that Coach Beamer has for this football program, because we are executing that vision or projecting that vision and putting it into action every single day of almost every single week of the calendar year. It's something like there's only a few weeks off that we're off, and then we're right back at it. And that started this morning. But whatever we said we're going to be, and under Coach Beamer, when we meet as a football staff, I have to take that and run with it 100 miles an hour and make sure that it is understandable, that it is something people want to be a part of, and that it is enforced and the standard is upheld. The importance, what was the second part of your question?
Just what, in your opinion, from just your experience over the years, makes a great strength and conditioning coach?
A man that can draw out the version of a young man he could not elicit himself. And if these kids could just train and we hand them a packet, we should just send them to the rec center. But if you can put the right people around him that, and I'm going to steal one of my favorite terms of just defining what a coach is from our senior associate or whatever, I don't even know what we're allowed to call him yet, but Chip Morton, 27-year NFL head strength coach that's going to join us here and is here on this staff, is man's heart are deep waters. And the insightful man, a real coach, draws that out of them. and there's deep water down there in the well, and we got to go dig it out. And that's what I have to do. Physically, this game is still about putting your hands on people and making them go where they don't want to go. And we have to train people that way. And there's a certain mindset that you have to do. There's a certain mentality that has to be taught and brought and instilled in people. And then a resilience. Like, it's one thing if you're a Ferrari type dude and you can go and you're explosive, that's great. But can you repeat it? Can you go round after round after round? And people that get trained that way, those are the people doing it the right way in this business, in my opinion.
Dick Cox.
Hi, Coach. I'm Dick Cox with Lindsey Sports and Cox Sports Broadcasting. I saw where you were involved and had your own inner city ministry. I've always been a man of strong faith. Can you tell me how your faith has been important throughout your career?
Well, it's an interesting story. I was an assistant strength coach at UCF. First off, back up. I grew up. My mom did, and I basically by default, I really had no choice. I was the assistant children's pastor as soon as I was old enough to not be in the children's church. So we were gonna help, I learned how to coach a room of people and address a room of people doing crazy kids games on Wednesday nights at the Hamilton Dream Center. And it's the same type of thing. It's, do you believe and are you living what you're saying to these kids? There's no difference between that and being in an SEC weight room. And it got to the point I was doing the devotionals. I followed Scott Sinclair had just left UCF, and I was there as an assistant at UCF. So the role of doing the game day chaplain duties fell on my plate, and I had. Sometimes you get rabbit's foot Christianity and you try to convince yourself how much God wants our side to win, and they're praying on their locker room, and basically everybody's praying for the same thing, which is to get a win. I got really convicted by that. And so that year, in the end of the 2014 season, I kind of hung this up and said, I'm not supposed to be doing this. If my faith is real, I got to put it into action, and I need to go back and help this ministry. And that's what I did. And it was interesting because I thought, well, I'm going to be in the ministry. Sometimes you put that's like a term, you put quotes around it. And well, what does that actually mean? Because as soon as I tried to get myself out of a weight room, I got asked to be in another weight room. And I was like, well, I'll do that as long as I got time to be in the ministry, whatever that means. And then Chip Morton asked me to be and help him out and be an assistant with the Cincinnati Bengals. And all of a sudden I said, wait a second. I told myself I can't make an idol out of this profession, but I need to live out my faith, and what I say people is important to me. And I kept getting put in weight rooms. And I said, okay, I get what's going on here. That is my platform. And there's a lot of things, man. One of the most purest forms of the human exchange still takes place in the weight room, and it's messy. And it can get harsh, and it can get tough, and I'll make mistakes, and I'll say the wrong thing because I'll get upset, and they'll say the wrong thing and they'll get upset. But we have to deal with our adversity with each other long before we walk into that stadium across the field here. And it's the same thing when you in the ministry. I learned you wrestle with your flesh and your spirit every single day. And we're going to wrestle with the lesser version of ourselves on this football team until it gets put down, and the best version of ourselves we've brought out, and we've compelled ourselves to give it to each other.
Josh Kendall.
Hi, Luke. Josh Kendall from The Athletic. Shane was telling us about the phone call in which he offered you the job. You had accepted it, but you still had to knock out the legal, the term sheet, et cetera, et cetera. And he told you not to get in the car, and you got in the car anyway. So can you walk us through that phone call and how long it took you just to say, to heck with it, I'm going to Columbia, and how much you slept or what you did in those intervening hours?
I didn't. He said, do you want to be the strength coach at South Carolina? I said 1,000%. And he said, okay, well, let me get the term sheet together. And I said, okay, I'll be there tomorrow. And he's like, well, make sure we get that taken care of. And I was like, at this point in time, somebody's going to carry me out of this building because you said you want me here, and I don't care about a piece of paper until you carry me out of here in handcuffs. But that's just how much I wanted to be here. And I was going to be there until they said I couldn't be. So, and that was obviously not probably the normal thing to do, but I was, like I said, this opportunity was close, and I could feel it in my hands, and I'm not going to let it go, and I'm not going to let a piece of paper stop me. Do you do Football and Grits, the podcast?
I do. Yeah.
I listened to that. Your voice sounded really familiar.
A lot of people say I have an accent, but I don't hear it.
I enjoyed that. I listened to it all season long.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
And now we know who the one was. John Del Bianco, next question.
Hey, Coach, I'm John Del Bianco with thebigspur.com 24/7 Sports. I'm just curious, what are some things you prioritize as a strength coach when you're on the field, practice field, straining these guys, when you're in the weight room? What are some things, techniques, otherwise, that you really prioritize?
Number one thing is it is my responsibility, is my staff's responsibility to know these men. And we are beginning that process right now. I want to know the worst thing that's ever happened to you, the best thing that's ever happened to you, your biggest dream, your biggest fear, what happened between your mom, what happened between your dad, because we're not coaching sets and reps and GPS units and what are we going to do the power clean today? Are we going to do the squat? Are we going to do the bench? Yeah, we'll figure all that out, but let's be able to communicate. Let's connect with these people. And if you and I share time and struggle, then you and I begin to care about each other. My heartstrings are connected to your heartstrings, and whatever pulls on me pulls on you. So start with that. And then let's build really physical, tough, resilient people that just keep bringing it over and over and over and over and over. Build a bigger, stronger human being and give him the robustness and the resilience to not fall apart, because it's a violent game.
Hale McGranahan.
Hey, Hale McGranahan. I work with John at the 24/7 site here covering the Gamecocks. I was just curious about your, I guess, mantra or however you refer to it as struggle well. I'm just kind of curious as where that came from and what that sort of means.
Yeah, it came from some big time life setbacks personally, and a lot of the times you get communicated that the pursuit of happiness is the exclusion of struggle, and if you get if you can just walk down the yellow brick road and make everything easy and everything's fast and everything's drive through and download the app and make it as quick as you possibly can. And what we do is we devalue the experience and the process that it took to get there. And struggle makes it valuable. And you're going to struggle no matter what. You're going to struggle with you check off all your boxes of what you said was going to make you happy and you're still not happy. Or you're going to struggle chasing down your life's biggest dream or the girl of your dreams or being a great father for your kids. And struggle is inevitable, so let's do it well. And if we learn how to lean into struggle instead of try to avoid it, we can be uncommon types of men. And if you got a whole bunch of people that think that way, they can be dangerous to other people that maybe don't think that way. So struggle is essential to making life experience great.
Colin Taylor.
Colin Taylor from the rival side here in Columbia. I'm just curious, you kind of mentioned what makes a good strength coach and kind of your process through this, but at the end of the day, how do you and your staff measure progress? What are some things that you look for, either tangible or intangible, to say, okay, we did a good job with this group this year?
Well, Bo Schembechler said, if it's important to your program, you better measure it. So we measure everything. We're going to measure your body weight every single day. Your body weight's a storyline of how you've been living. Everybody should not be the same. Nobody on this football team or any football team should feel like I just got to maintain. There's no such thing. Everybody needs to be leaner. Everybody needs to be thicker. Everybody needs to be bigger. And they need to be less body fat. So we're gonna measure that. We're gonna measure all of our strength numbers, every single type of strength number there is to measure. We're gonna build a sports science program that is the envy of college football. We're gonna monitor the things that matter. There's a million different metrics, but what are we doing with it? And is it helping us make great decisions as we go to practice and prepare for games? We're going to measure the intangibles. I'm not big on coach speak and terms that are just on the walls that look fancy on graphics and kids see it when they come get recruited. Let's define our terms, and if it matters, how do we measure it? So if we say we're going to be accountable and we say we're going to be tough and we say it's about performing, let's put a metric to it. And so that's what we started that this morning with we call it the grit score. And something Dr. Angela Duckworth helped us build over a number of years. And it's a way to tell each other truth. It's not a way to modify behavior and tell people how wrong they are and make people feel excluded and bad about themselves. But if you don't look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself truth, it's hard to go anywhere from there. So if we say it's something that we're going to do in this program, I better be able to explain its value, and if I can't, we shouldn't do it. And if it is valuable, it should be tracked. So we're going to track everything.
It's good.
Where is this point? Can you expound on what the grit score is, or just kind of take me through that?
I'm just gonna keep it kind of broad. It's broken up into 3 categories: accountability, toughness, and performance. And it's a binary. You did or you didn't. My man Yoda, you do or do not. There is no try.
Let's go to Scotty Eisberg.
Hey, look, just 2 quick questions for you. First, I think we've seen strength coaches across the country. They've always got some quirkiness to them. Are you a guy that, cuts the sleeves off your golf shirts or headbutts players with
no.
helmets on or anything like that?
I'm not going to speak for any other strength coaches. There's guys that are big, powerful people that played this game, and they're recognizable, and they're really impressive looking individuals. I'm not one of those people. My gift is just, I'm going to keep it real with you. 100% of the time. And you're going to know that what I'm telling you is what I believe is the truth. You might not agree with it, and we might duke it out over it, but being, and this is an overused term, I wish there was a better word for it, but it's a 21st century word, is authentic. We're going to be authentic with ourselves. Nobody cares how far Bill Belichick can throw a football, right? And just like I shouldn't be sloppy, but no, it shouldn't be about how much I can bench press and how much I fill up sleeves and all of those sorts of things. It really should be. It's about these kids, and it's about what am I doing for them. And yeah, I want to be tough, and I want to be strong, and I want to be resilient for my kids so I can go play with them, and I want to go and do big excursion things outdoors, and let's go to the beach and all that kind of stuff. But this isn't about me drawing attention to myself. This is what can we create that makes these people fire on all cylinders. And so I'm not going to speak for other people's quirkiness. My quirkiness is I will do absolutely anything that is possible in the realms to make this place better and to make these kids tougher. That's what we're going to do.
Mike Yuba.
And second question.
Go ahead, Scott. Sorry.
We're just going to ask you about having Byron Gerudo on staff. What's it like to kind of bring a guy who seems pretty fired up to be coming back to his alma mater?
Well, everything is going through the lens of Coach Beamer's gratitude. And we only want people around here that being offered this job is the best thing that's ever happened to them. And so Byron, having played here, It's a dream come true to come and be in this role and be back with Coach Beamer and some other former players that are coming around. But also, it's a daily monument of how to be here. There's a guy in our room that has walked in their shoes and has won in their shoes. And there's something. It's like if you're not gonna listen to me, take it from him because he's been here. He's done it. And that's important to get that real-time feedback loop in front of these kids all the time. And more importantly than any of that, he's a phenomenal human being. And we're going to assemble the best human beings possible to where that bleeds through in every single thing that we do. And people understand that, wait a second, this guy, I think, has my best interests in mind. I'm gonna listen to what he has to say. And that we are embarking on we're going out into deep water. And we're going to do a deep dive into each other as player to player, coach to player, coach to coach. And everybody in here, it's a superpower when you have a football program where the people around them actually care about each other.
Mike Yuba.
Luke, going off of Scott's first question for you, I think it's evident, the guys that are in this room right now listening to you, that you have passion. And I'm sure that's what keeps you going. But, you hear strength and conditioning coaches. I mean, what's one of the things that just keeps that energy there? I'm not saying it's necessarily fueled by having 5 Red Bulls a day, but, what do you do to be able to keep that energy level so high? Because, we're all human, but at the same time, too, you're looked at in your role to be able to keep the morale so high, even when times are going to be tough, in the coming years.
I'm a cold brew guy more than a Red Bull guy, but the passion and perseverance, Angela Duckworth, she defines that as grit, and you're only as gritty or resilient as your most recent reference point. And I know what it's like to be in this business, and I know what it's like to be out of this business. I know what it's like to pour concrete and be the worst guy at it. And we love to say grind and all that kind of stuff, and we get to grind. Well, that's a grind. The guy getting in his pickup truck, and he knows for the next 12 hours it's going to be 97 degrees outside, and we're going to pour this concrete. That's a grind. So my reference point isn't like, oh, we got to get through these 3 lifts. It's like, come on, man. All we got to do is get through these 3 lifts and bring as much joy and energy and excitement and passion to what we're doing. And just, but when it's time, let's not be psychopaths. And when it's time to rest, let's rest. But then when it's time to go, it's time to go. And let's never, ever, ever look around and be like, you know what, I need a break, because as soon as I walk out of this room, there's 1,000 strength coaches that want to be here. And may I never forget that.
Josh Kendall.
Luke, I was wondering how long it took you to hook up with Eric Kimry in the office. And y'all seem, you seem like kindred spirits.
We are. Is that, he's at his high school at Hammond. He said on the championship ring, it says struggle well on it. And he starts messaging me the night kind of word started getting out that I was coming down there. And he's like, are you serious right now? And we're trying to figure out still who owes who royalties about some things. But the take that he has on players, on the hearts of players, what struggle means, how it brings meaning to our life. We're off to a budding bromance.
And Shane said that you and he shared some sort of he didn't use this term, but sound like foundational books, stuff that's in your library that you think highly of. What are some of those books for you that Angela Duckworth?
Angela Duckworth's Grit, and the thing about that is, like, if you email her, she'll respond. And we've gone back and forth about what it means and what kids are going through and how to reverse trauma that kids go through. The other one is John Eldridge's Wild at Heart, and Man's Deepest Question. His theory on that, man's deepest question is, am I enough? And I think we don't ever stop asking ourselves, no matter how old we are. That's why we're obsessed with the ticker on Saturday evenings with the score, because it's a real-time feedback to tell you, you were enough this week. Last week you weren't enough. And so we want people to play this game and this football program as an example of who they know they are. We're going to find out who we are long before we walk into that stadium. And we're not going to play this game in search of who we are. Because when you put the outcome based on, and you put who you are based off of the outcome, that's a slippery, slippery slope. And that can get negative really fast. So you've got to go back. You've got to build a foundation of what you know is true about you. And then let's go put that on display for everybody.
Dick Cox.
What's the most important thing you want people to know about you?
We're going to care for these players in a way they've never been cared for.
Hilmer Danahan.
I think you may have kind of addressed this when Colin followed up about the grit score, but I was curious, how do you define grit?
Well, grit is the culmination of all of the things that is showing that we're persevering and we're displaying passion for this long-term thing, which is to win at a high level. Toughness, more specifically, is what you're doing is more important than how you feel. And we want kids to understand that that's just the brain's chemical equation to, is this worth it? Everything we do. You guys decided it was worth it to be sitting here and have this meeting so that you can put it out to your respected outlets. Just like these kids decided it was worth it to come in there this morning and work their brains out on day one. Everything that you do, you're asking yourself, is it worth it? And the more strain and the more struggle and the more investment and time that you put into it, the value of that keeps getting higher and higher and higher. And when you got somebody that just says, I don't care what happens. I don't care how you make me feel. I don't care what the score is right now. I don't care what it's going to be later. This is more important than how I feel. When you have people that live with that kind of urgency, they're usually pretty tough people. So that's how we define it.
Lou at the State.
Sorry there. Luke, what's the biggest challenge since, you've been here a couple weeks, but you guys are already working out in these next 9 weeks. What's the biggest challenge for you to get through to these players?
Well, the biggest challenge is you land here, you put boots on the ground, you get a staff together, and immediately you have to begin to convey what's most important, and it has to be consistent, and then you have to progress it. So just establishing meaning, establishing value, and then building off of that and upholding it every single day at all moments, and never ever, as my old guy Doc Holliday used to say, don't flinch, don't ever flinch. And when we say the most important thing that we're going to do here is we're going to learn how to love each other. And what I mean by that is not retweets and hearts and fist pounds and hugs and tell everybody how great they are and, this is, lifter of the week and trophies and all these kinds of participation things. But like love, it bears all things, as the good book says. It confronts, it forgives, it allows grace. I'm going to make mistakes, they're going to make mistakes, but we're going to be men in process with each other that allow each other to sharpen each other, because we're learning how to love each other. That's the most important thing.
Colin Taylor.
I guess 2 questions for you. I know the mental side of it seems pretty important to you and your staff. How do you guys as a group go about fostering that? How do you improve players' mental health and look out for them as you go through this grueling process? And second of all, is there a playlist idea that you guys go with in the weight room? Do the players pick it? Do you pick it? And do you get to have any input on it?
Oh, I got lots of input. Well, let me answer the first one first, is mental health. Intent is everything, right? Bert Soren said to me yesterday, he's like, I'd rather you accidentally punch me in the nose than swing and miss. right? And so intent of what is it we're trying to do for them and where are we coming from here? This might sound harsh. You might not like how this message is coming out of my mouth right now, but you know why I'm saying it. And as long as you understand that, you are going to have a posture that is able to receive what I'm laying down on you. That is paramount. Intentions are everything, but follow through is more. So we're going to intend, and they're going to understand that this is coming from a place of love, and then we're going to follow through with that with actions and not fluffy words. With the playlist, it's got, number one is it's going to be clean. Some songs there's hardly any words left when you do that, but we're going to play some. We're going to do a little bit of everything. We're going to play some old school rock. We're going to put some Jimi Hendrix on in there. We're going to do some weird, funky alt country stuff on there. We're going to put the Drive-By Truckers on. We're going to put Lil Wayne's hits. We're going to put Kodak Black. I'm hip with all of it, man, but it's got to be clean. So,
any other questions for Coach Day? Good. All right. That is it for today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Everybody.